You are listening to the reading test. The reading test has 40 questions. There are several passages in this test. Each passage is accompanied by several questions. After reading a passage, choose the best answer to each question and fill in the corresponding oval on your answer document. You may refer to the passages as often as necessary. Passage 1. Literary narrative. This passage is adapted from the short story From Aboard the Night Train by Kimberly M. Blazer, 1993, which appeared in Earth Song Sky Spirit short stories of the contemporary Native American experience. The passage begins with a female narrator traveling to her hometown. The moon gives some light, and I can make out the contours of the land, see the faint reflection in the lakes and ponds we pass. Several times I see, or imagine I see, the glowing eyes staring back at me from a patch of woods beside the track. When we pass through their tiny towns, I try to read their signs, catch their names from their water towers or grain elevators. Occasionally, the train stops at Portage, Winona, and Redwing. In my sleeping compartment, watching the night countryside, so much world rolls by my window. Like a voyeur, I watch the various reunion scenes. I feel these scenes add up to something, some meaning or lesson about all life, and I try to put it into words for myself, but find I can't. I finally give up, roll over, go to sleep, and dream. But now I am awake, keeping my vigil over the Midwest pastoral kingdom. Chicago, even Minneapolis, seems a long way away. A few hours later, still in the deep night hours, the train arrives at my stop, Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, the closest I can get to my destination. Suddenly, as I descend the 2 steps from the train, the porter hands me into one of the reunion scenes. "Hi, honey, how was the trip? Did you get any sleep?" "A little. Been waiting long? Long enough to beat your dad in 2 games of cribbage?" Glancing back at the train windows, I imagine I am looking into eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. I think about progress a lot in the next few days and about what passes for progress. Nightly we walk about town, talk marriages and funerals, then sit on the newly installed benches on Main Street. Together we assemble from our memories the town as it was 20 or 25 years ago. We remember the little model meat market and the old Pioneer office. We rebuild the Landmark Hotel, take down the vinyl fronts from the grocery store, change the light posts, the awnings, the names of the current businesses. I put back the old depot, you the corner funeral home, but soon we are distracted and leave things half-constructed when we begin to add the people. What's his name? The square dance caller, Ed, the fire chief, and Lydia, the town's best gossip. On the walk back home, we've begun to list very specific things, which is the closest we get to the intangibles. The rental meat lockers, the 4-digit telephone numbers, the free ice cream during Dairy Month. Late at night in my old bed, I listen to the night sounds of the house and fall asleep counting the changes that have come to my little hometown. The park is off limits after dark now. The football field is fenced in. 1 hour photo has come to my town, along with a tanning salon and a pizza parlor. The dry goods store is gone, the dairy long gone. People lock their houses now, more than once a year when the carnival comes to town. But all of these changes pale in comparison to what have replaced the bait shop, the used car lot, and Mr. Morton's small farm, what has sprung up on Highway 59 at the edge of town, Las Vegas-style gambling. Taking the train back, I decide to put on my pajamas and crawl under the sheets, hoping to trick myself into a good night's sleep. It seems to work. I've slept soundly for several hours, but then the dreams start. I fall in and out of them, but they are not the usual nightmares. I'm in a place where folks you know 10, 15, 20 years after you've left and still see you in your face, that of your grandfather or aunt or cousin. I know I am home and I feel safe. I have an early breakfast with a would-be journalist and some ski vacationers who want to talk about election prospects. I merely feign attention. I nod or laugh on cue while I try to read upside down a story in the would-be journalist's newspaper that has caught my eye. It is about the Russian space station and the cosmonaut who had been up in orbit during the takeover attempt and ultimate dissolution of the Soviet Union. After 16 long months, they are bringing the capsule back. While the train carries me back to my current home and away from my former, I keep thinking about that poor cosmonaut coming back to find his whole world changed, to find himself a man without a country, at least without the country he left behind. I watch the 10 o'clock national news broadcast. I see him emerge from the capsule. I see him try to stand and have his knees buckle. I know they said it was because he wouldn't have been able to exercise for such a long time, but I wonder if his we-need feeling might not have more to do with what he saw out the window of the space station and with how the world was happening around without him. Question number 1. The point of view from which the passage is told is best described as that of A young adult riding a train through the small towns of the upper Midwest. B, a young adult preparing to move away from her hometown. C, an adult missing the new home she has established. D, an adult reflecting on the past and pondering the present. Question number 2. The passage contains recurring references to all of the following except F, dreams, G, reunion scenes, H, photographs, J, train trips. Question number 3. The first 3 paragraphs, line 1 through 21, establish all of the following about the narrator except that she is A, passing through a number of towns, B, originally from Chicago, C, traveling by train, D, observant of the landscape. Question number 4. It can be reasonably inferred from the passage that the narrator thinks her hometown has F, improved significantly over the years, G, made little genuine progress, H, remained about the same as it was years ago, J, a chance of being rebuilt as it used to be. Question number 5. Based on the narrator's account, all of the following were part of the past rather than the present in her hometown except A, 4-digit phone numbers, B, the fenced-in football field, C, free ice cream during Dairy Month, D, the depot. Question number 6. According to the narrator, which of the following businesses is relatively new to her hometown? F, the tanning salon, G, the bait shop, H, the dry goods store, J, the used car lot. Question number 7. When the narrator refers to cosmonaut as a man without a country, lines 83 through 84, she is most likely directly referring to the A, cosmonaut's feeling that he is now a citizen of space, not the former Soviet Union, B, cosmonaut's unrealized expectation that he will be treated like a hero, C, political transformation that occurred while the cosmonaut was in space, D, 16 months that the cosmonaut spent in orbit around Earth. Question number 8. Details in the passage most strongly suggest that the people meeting the narrator at the train station include F, her father, G, her sister, H, a neighbor, J, a journalist. Question number 9. The narrator indicates that the most significant change to her hometown has been the addition of A, square dancing, B, vinyl storefronts, C, benches on Main Street, D, Las Vegas-style gambling. Question number 10. According to the passage, news reports attributed the cosmonaut's knees buckling to F, his gratitude at being back on Earth, G, political changes in the world, H, a lack of exercise, J, his dismay at what he had seen from the space station. Passage 2, Social Science. This passage is adapted from the article Green Music in the Rainforest by Suzanne Charlet, which appeared in fall 2002 Ford Foundation report. OELA is an acronym based on the Portuguese words rather than the English words used in this article. A luthier is a maker of stringed musical instruments. The Amazonian Workshop School for Fabrication of Stringed Instruments, OELA, is a small part of a larger effort to create a sustainable harvest of the great Amazon forest and to give employment to the region's burgeoning population. Few people know that the Amazon is one of the most rapidly urbanizing regions of the world, observes Jose Gabriel Lopez, a Ford Foundation program officer in Brazil. The city of Manaus, for example, has grown in the past decade from 850,000 to 1.5 million. This rural-urban migration and the resultant urban shanty towns stand as living symbols of failed or non-existent rural development policies, Lopez says. In many places, small-scale rural producers have been abandoned, devoid of health and education services, credit, technical assistance, and opportunity. What Rubens Gomes, founder of the Workshop School, and his colleagues have created in Manaus is hope. Gomes knows how to build hope. The school, he notes proudly, is the first to make stringed instruments in the Amazon, and it is the first in all of the Americas to construct instruments exclusively of the lumber harvested in an environmentally and socially sustainable manner certified by the Forest Stewardship Council. Officially, there are 30 million cubic meters of wood cut in the Amazon annually, Gomes says. 20 million of this is wasted, sawdust, scraps, unwanted wood left to rot. And those are the official numbers. The motive of this school is to transform what is lost into things of value. Many people could do this, but there are no schools teaching carpentry in the Amazon. OELA is meant to help fill the void. To graduate, each student must make a stringed instrument. All of the guitars are made from certified wood. Gomes explains that traditionally, Brazilian rosewood and ebony were used in the construction of guitars, but because of intense harvesting, these trees are close to extinction. I've been working for years trying to find Amazon woods that are unknown on the market, that are in plentiful supply, and that can be used in instrument making, Gomes says. He experimented with dozens before he found types that have the right strength and sound. Like other master luthiers, he can tell by touching the wood whether it will reverberate well. Once he has identified the woods as possible substitutes, he sends them to a laboratory to be tested for the right grain and density. Today, Brosissimum rubescens is substituted for rosewoods, Aniba canelilla for ebony, and Proteum species for Brazilian mahogany and cedar. These and some 25 other undervalued tropical hardwoods have found their way into the luthier's workshop, taking the pressure off the better-known woods. For the past year, Master Luthier Raul Lage from the Fernando Ortiz Instrument Making School of the Cuban Music Institute has been working with his students. There are hurdles, he cautions, a number of them technical. The high humidity in Manaus means that wood will crack in drier climates unless properly treated. Glue frequently doesn't hold. These problems are slowly being resolved. There's also a major obstacle outside the workshop, the resistance of buyers to new woods. Thus far, most of the instruments have been sold to environmentalists, some who adopt a student by paying his or her tuition, and the student's project guitar is then given to the donor as a gift. There's also the possibility of contract work from outside the Amazon. Gomes' hopes were raised recently when the president of a well-known guitar company based in Nashville, Tennessee, ordered 15 guitars to be auctioned off for the Rainforest Alliance. Large cautions that it will be a long time before any of the students can command a master luthier's fee. There's a saying, anyone can make one good guitar. It takes a master to make one every time. Jose Lucio do Nascimento Rebelo, director of the technical school, says, by learning this skill, students come to look at the forest in a new way. There are ways other than logging for plywood and firewood to earn a living, to better the life of the people. One of the woods being used as a replacement for the precious rosewood, he notes, is typically used to make charcoal. Such an appreciation for the forest, says Rebelo, could have a huge effect on the survival of the rainforest. Some 80% of the students come from other parts of the state of the Amazonas, and virtually all of them return to their hometowns. Some go on to become politicians who will have a direct influence on the future of the forest. Question number 11. Which of the following assumptions would be most critical for a reader to accept in order to agree fully with the author's claims in the passage? A. Shanty towns in the Amazon need to be relocated if the forest is to be saved. B. Learning to make consistently good guitars requires access to the best materials available. C. Small-scale rural producers in the Amazon can help preserve the forest by being innovative. D. Consumers outside the Amazon can do little to prevent deforestation. Question number 11. In the context of the passage, the statement, "all of the guitars are made from certified wood," lines 34 through 35, most nearly suggests that Gomez's workshop, F, uses environmentally sustainable woods in its guitars. G, isn't doing enough to stop unnecessary deforestation in the Amazon. H, has little chance of pleasing both musicians and environmentalists. J, uses only traditional woods in making its guitars. Question number 13. It can most reasonably be inferred from the passage that regarding OELA, the author feels A, skeptical of the workshop's aims, B, dismayed by the workshop's low productivity, C, supportive of the workshop's goals, D, confident that the workshop could be duplicated in other places. Question number 14. The main purpose of the second paragraph, lines 6 through 18, is to F, draw attention to the Amazon's tremendous population growth. G, explain the necessity for ventures such as Gomez's. H, explain the presence of the Ford Foundation in the Amazon. J, justify raising taxes to increase social services in the Amazon. Question number 15. The main function of the fifth paragraph, lines 33 through 53, is to A, demonstrate the woodworking skills required to be a master luthier. B, explore the limitations of science as compared to intuition. C, outline the scientific reasons why one type of wood cannot be replaced by another. D, show that experiments led to the discovery of good substitutes for rare wood. Question number 16. The passage notes all of the following as problems that the fledgling Amazon guitar industry has experienced, except that F, glue on the guitars sometimes don't hold. G, the wood used may crack in drier climates. H, woods usable for guitars have become extinct. J, buyers resist guitars made with non-traditional woods. Question number 17. The passage indicates that, as a group, the OELA students may impact the survival of the rainforest because most of them, A, care deeply enough about music to spend their lives making musical instruments, B, will return to their homes and spread their environmental knowledge, C, are willing to endure personal hardships in order to use their new skills, D, will have political careers after they return home. Question number 18. In the passage, Gomez indicates that of the wood cut in the Amazon rainforest each year, approximately how much wood is wasted? F, 1/4, G, 1/3, H, 1/2, J, 2/3. Question number 19. The passage states that all of the following are woods traditionally used for making stringed instruments, except A, Aniba canalilla, B, rosewood, C, Brazilian mahogany, D, ebony. Question number 20. According to the passage, when an OELA student is adopted, he or she receives F, tuition, G, room and board, H, food and clothing, J, a musical instrument. Number 3, humanities. This passage is adapted from the article Finding Philosophy by Colin McGinn. Descartes, line 63, refers to René Descartes, 1596-1650, a French mathematician, philosopher, and scientist. I have been an academic philosopher for the past 30 years. I came from an academically disinclined background in the northeast of England. My relatives, being mainly coal miners and other manual workers, I was the first in my family to attend university, and indeed had no thought of it until age 17, when a teacher mentioned it at school. My father had become a successful builder, so we were not materially deprived, and it was expected that I would become some sort of technical worker. The idea that I might one day become a professional philosopher was inconceivable in those days to me and everyone else. I was simply not living in a place where that kind of thing ever happened. It was far likelier, though still not at all likely, that I would become a pop star. I played drums in a rock band. The paperback British edition of my memoir, The Making of a Philosopher, has a photograph on the cover of a man sitting on a bench placed in a gray and listless landscape. He's overlooking the sea on a misty, grim day, and the atmosphere is bleak and melancholy. The man, hunched up, immobile, coiled almost, has a pensive posture as if frozen in thought. This picture is based on a story I tell in the book about sitting on a bench in Blackpool, aged 18, pondering the metaphysical question of how objects relate to their properties. Is an object just the sum total of its properties, a mere coalescence of general features, or does it somehow lie behind its properties, supporting them, a solid peg on which they happen to hang? When I look at an object, do I really see the object itself, or just the appearance of its properties offered to me? I remember the feeling of the fixation that came over me when I thought about these questions, a kind of floating fascination, a still perplexity. When I look back on this period in my late teens, I recall the harnessing of undirected mental energy by intellectual pursuits. Up until then, my mental energy had gone to things like reading Melody Maker, which contained fairly serious articles about pop musicians. I always knew the top 20 off by heart and studied the articles about drummers intensely, hoping to improve my own technique. I suspect that this kind of swashing mental energy is fairly typical of boys that age. School doesn't seem to connect with it, and it goes off in search of some object of interest, often trivial, sometimes disruptive. In my case, it was philosophy that seized that energy and converted it into a passion, though one that took several years to form fully. It is a delicate and fastidious energy that I am speaking of, despite its power, and it will only be satisfied by certain employments, which of course vary from person to person. I had had a similar passion for chemistry when I was 10, and for butterflies and lizards before that. How to harness such passions to formal education remains a great and unresolved problem. It was, of course, a teacher who tapped into my formless and fizzing mental energy. Mr. Marsh, teacher of divinity, brimmingly Christian, a man with very active eyebrows and a sharp enunciation, in love with scholarship. Oh, how he relished that word. It was he who first brought out my inner philosopher. From him I heard of Descartes, locked up in his room, wondering whether anything could really be known beyond his own existence. But what I mainly got from the enthusiastic Mr. Marsh was the desire to study. His own passion for study shone through, and he managed to make it seem, if not glamorous, then at least exhilarating, when done the right way and in the right spirit. Pencils and stationery were made to seem like shiny tools, and the pleasure of making one's mark on a blank sheet of paper hymned. Choosing a good spot to study was emphasized. Above all, I learned a very valuable lesson, one that had hitherto escaped me. Make notes. Thinking and writing should be indissoluble activities, the hand ministering to the thought shaped by the hand. Today, if I find myself without pen and paper and thought starts to arrive, my fingers begin to twitch, and I long for those implements of cogitation. With such rudimentary tools, you can perform the miracle of turning an invisible thought into a concrete mark, bringing the ethereal interior into the public external world, refining it into something precious and permanent. The physical pleasure of writing, which I find survives in the use of a computer, is something worth dwelling on in matters of education. Question number 21. The passage is best described as being told from the point of view of a philosopher who is A. discussing the metaphysical questions that have troubled philosophers since the time of Descartes, B. presenting in chronological order the key events in his 30-year professional career, C. reflecting on his own early, developing interest in philosophy and in scholarship generally, D. advising professional educators on how to get more students to study philosophy. Question number 22. Based on the passage, which of the following most likely the first to engage the author's passionate interest. F. Drumming. G. Philosophy. H. Chemistry. J. Butterflies. Question number 23. The main purpose of the last paragraph is to A. Reveal the enduring impact of Mr. Marsh's lesson on the author. B. Acknowledge that the author came to doubt some of Mr. Marsh's teachings. C. Describe a typical class as taught by Mr. Marsh. D. Present a biographical sketch of Mr. Marsh. Question number 24. The passage indicates that the man in the book cover photograph represents F. Descartes, wondering what could be known. G. Mr. Marsh, deep in scholarly thought. H. The author at age 17, thinking about enrolling in college. J. The author at age 18, contemplating a philosophical issue. Question number 25. The author mentions Melody Maker, the Top 20, and articles about musicians primarily to suggest that his A. Early interest in music has remained with him to the present. B. Time spent playing music should instead have been spent reading. C. Fascination with pop music and musicians gave focus to his life for a time. D. Commitment to study enabled him to perfect his drumming technique. Question number 26. In the third paragraph, lines 36 through 56, the author most nearly characterizes the energy he refers to as F. Potent yet difficult to channel in a constructive way. G. Powerful and typically leading to destructive results. H. Delicate and inevitably wasted in trivial undertakings. J. Gentle yet capable of uniting people who have different interests. Question number 27. Viewed in the context of the passage, the statement in lines 55 through 56 is most likely intended to suggest that A. Schools should require students to take philosophy courses. B. Students can become passionate when learning about science in school. C. Schools need to keep searching for ways to tap into students' deeply held interests. D. Students should resolve to take school courses that interest them. Question number 28. The author calls pen and paper rudimentary tools in line 80 as part of his argument that F. The use of computers has made the use of pen and paper obsolete. G. Students should become skilled with pen and paper before moving on to better tools. H. While writing with pen and paper can be pleasant, it can also be physically painful. J. Although seemingly simple, pen and paper allow people to perform great feats. Question number 29. In the context of the passage, lines 17 through 23 are best described as presenting images of A. Gloom, tension, and fascination. B. Anger, bitterness, and betrayal. C. Stillness, peacefulness, and relaxation. D. Frustration, surprise, and satisfaction. Question number 30. Which of the following does not reasonably describe the transition the author presents in lines 80 through 84? F. Precious to commonplace. G. Fleeting to permanent. H. Invisible to visible. J. Private to public. Number 4. Natural Science. This passage is adapted from Consider the Eel by Richard Schwade. The known facts, as they are pretty much universally accepted among biologists and naturalists today, are that all eels in the rivers of eastern North America and the Caribbean countries, and all the eels in all the rivers of eastern and western Europe, are born in the same area of the Sargasso Sea, a huge area within the Atlantic Ocean between Bermuda and the Azores, the surface of which is frequently covered with sargassum seaweed. In fact, the word sargasso comes from the Portuguese sargaco, meaning seaweed. The sea is about 2,000 miles long and 1,000 miles wide, set off from the surrounding waters of the Atlantic by strong currents. It includes the area known in popular legend as the Bermuda Triangle. Eels hatch in the Sargasso as larvae and are carried by the ocean's currents to either Europe or the United States, a journey that can cover thousands of miles and take years. Where they end up depends on which of the two similar species they belong to. Those that are Angula, invariably wind up in the European rivers, and those that enter North American rivers always belong to the species Angula rostrata. The first person to find eel larvae in the Sargasso Sea was Danish researcher Johannes Schmidt, who published his findings in 1924 after spending 18 years hauling nets in search of eels. The larvae of both species are shaped like small oval leaves and are called leptocephali. Each leptocephalus begins to assume the form of a tiny eel called an elver or a glass eel when it gets close to the coasts of either Europe or the Americas. By the time it reaches the brackish water, where fresh and salt water mix, it is thin and transparent, hardly bigger than a hair, with a pair of eyes like black dots at one end. From the estuaries and the mouths of rivers, the tiny eels frequently continue upstream, particularly the females, who sometimes go great distances inland. American eels have been found as far up the Mississippi River system as the rivers of Iowa. They keep going upriver until something tells them that they've reached home, and then they stop. Whatever it is that signals to eels that their home is definitive. They settle in and live there for as long as 20 years, growing up to a yard long before beginning their journey back to the Sargasso Sea. Scientists determine an eel's age using a microscope to read the growth rings of its otolith, a small hard calcium deposit at the base of its skull. In preparation for the return journey to the Sargasso, sexually mature female eels feed voraciously and change color from the muddy yellow-green of adult eels, often called yellow eels, to a darker green on top and snow white on their bellies. At this stage, they're called silver eels. They swim downriver in the fall, on the first leg of their journey to the Sargasso, and when they reach estuarine waters, they rest, completing their final transformation as silver eels. They will have eaten heavily and will be about 28% body fat. They will never eat again, and their digestive systems will atrophy. Their pupils will expand and turn blue. They will need a new kind of sight adapted to the depths of the sea where there's little light. They will also have to go through a drastic adjustment via osmosis in their blood chemistry to prepare for the tremendous change in water pressure, going from some 14 pounds of freshwater pressure per inch of their bodies to over a ton of ocean pressure per inch. Once they are back in the Sargasso Sea, the females produce eggs for the males to fertilize, and then the adults die. At least that is what today's marine biologists and naturalists tell us. Although adult eels have never been seen swimming, reproducing, or dying in the Sargasso, in fact, live adult eels have never been seen there at all. The only 2 adult eels ever reported in the Sargasso Sea were dead and found in the stomachs of other fish. The eel's migration back to its birthplace and what it actually does when it gets there are assumed to take place far below the water's surface, and as of the year 2001 were still completely unobserved. However, the eel larvae, the leptocephali that Schmidt found in the Sargasso, were so small that it was certain they had been born recently and nearby. Such small larvae have never been seen elsewhere, and while eels have never been observed reproducing in the Sargasso, they've never been seen doing so anyplace else either. Scientists believe the larvae hatch out of eggs at a depth of 100 to 300 yards and rise slowly towards the light at the sea's surface. Question number 31. One of the main ideas established by the passage is that A. Researchers have nearly exhausted their resources after spending decades investigating the Sargasso Sea. B. Significant gaps still remain in the researchers' understanding of the life cycle of eels. C. Eels live in their entire lives in the Sargasso Sea, but no one has ever seen them there. D. Female eels turn into silver eels towards the end of their lives. Question number 32. Learning about which of the following had the largest impact on scientists' current understanding of where eels breed. F. The direction in which ocean currents carry eel larvae. G. The relationship of the yellow eel stage to the silver eel stage. H. Schmidt's discovery of eel larvae in the Sargasso Sea. J. The adult eels found in the stomachs of other fish. Question number 33. The main purpose of the 4th paragraph, lines 34 through 47, is to describe the A. Eels' transition from freshwater to the ocean. B. Method of determining the age of the eels. C. Complexity of the Mississippi River system. D. River stage of the eel life cycle. Question number 34. The passage states that the Sargasso Sea is set off from the rest of the Atlantic Ocean by F. The Azores. G. Several Caribbean countries. H. Powerful winds. J. Strong currents. Question number 35. The passage notes that the Sargasso Sea includes A. The eastern North American shore. B. The Bermuda Triangle. C. Certain coastal estuaries. D. The mouth of the Mississippi River. Question number 36. As it is used in line 13, the word popular most nearly means F. Well-liked. G. Commonly known. H. Scientifically accepted. J. Most admired. Question number 37. As it is used in line 45, the word read most nearly means to A. Learn from print. B. Observe. C. Think about. D. Predict. Question number 38. The passage indicates that female eel's pupils expand and turn blue because the eels F. Must adapt to sea in an environment with much less light than they're used to. G. Are about to undergo a change in their blood chemistry. H. No longer need to be able to recognize food sources because they have stopped eating. J. Need to be able to recognize the male eels that will fertilize their eggs. Question number 39. The passage most strongly emphasizes that the process of osmosis is necessary for the eel's transition from A. Shallower to deeper water. B. Feeding to non-feeding. C. Immature to mature form. D. Ulvar to yellow eel. Question number 40. According to the passage, which of the following characteristics of the eel larva found by Schmidt provided the best evidence that the larvae were hatched in the Sargasso Sea? F. Size. G. Shape. H. Color. J. Species. This is the end of Test 3, the reading test. Stop. Do not turn the page until you are told to do so. Do not return to a previous test.